Hey guys, this is Will from the Running Injury Free Revolution. So this video is actually focusing on somewhere a bit more specific. It's about injuries that occur in the metatarsals in the foot. And there's a few things that you can get through there, and generally they're from overloading or just that increase in pressure, kind of an overuse injury as well. But there are ways to try and prevent against it, as well as seeing podiatrists and the possibility of orthotics and new footwear and those sorts of things. Technically, there are things you can do to prevent against it, and I just want to help you by showing you a few things. So a few sort of injuries that you can get. First of all, there's metatarsalgia, and generally that's just a little bit of inflammation at the base of the metatarsal below the big toe. So you'll get quite a bit of a pain in that area, and that can be quite discomforting as a runner. Another injury that you might have heard of is Morton's neuroma, and that's a benign neuroma on the intermetatarsal plantar nerve, and that's generally between the second and third metatarsal, or the third and fourth, and that can be contributed to with either a pain or a numbness in that area, and a lot of runners talk about that. Usually that's just advised to take a cortisone injection, which is a way of reducing that pain, but I try and look at preventative measures before taking that route. Another type of injury that people often find in that area is just stress fractures, that constant loading in that area. So those metatarsals either causing a little bit of a break in the bone, or even from the pulling of the muscles in the foot. There are so many in the foot, and by pulling on those metatarsals, that can start to weaken the bone too and cause a little bit of a crack. So injuries in the metatarsals, I find, are generally on runners who are overloading too much. I mean, there's a few things I talk about in running that are really important about reducing those pressures. I made a video called Abolishing the Support Phase, and that was talking about going against the modern day literatures in running that talks about breaking running down into the support phase and the swing phase. So that was when you see a runner, they sink down. This is the support phase, so your body's under that huge amount of force, and that's the moment when you take that pressure on in the metatarsals. And then they talk about the swing phase and creating that movement. So trying to abolish that support phase and instead thinking about just gaining a nice efficient technique with good alignment and trying to have a really, really quick contact phase. So that time in contact with the ground is reduced, and that pressure is also reduced as well. One thing I say to a lot of runners is, when you run, you almost want it to be like when you go to the toilet in the middle of the night and you don't want to wake someone up. When you do that, you often try and bring your head up tall to try and reduce that noise and thus pressures through the feet. So as a runner, it's about imagining your head being pulled towards the sky. It's about trying to lengthen through the hips, picking up that chest. And again, we've made videos about that too. You can check out the videos about Z syndrome, part 1 and part 2. So trying to get that lengthening through the torso, imagine your head being pulled towards the sky. With that, you want to create movement naturally using your body, and then thinking about when you make contact, it's as quick as possible. So having the feet and legs really relaxed, contacting below your center of gravity, and thinking about it, when you lean forwards, that's when your heels start to come off the ground. And if you maintain that position as you run, and you're very relaxed, and you're staying tall, that contact below the center of gravity is incredibly rapid. You'll feel those heels peeling away from the ground as soon as they're making contact. So complementing that with that good length through your body, you're going to make that impact in the foot a lot less. So as a runner, yes, of course, you're going to get those pressures through the feet, but they don't have to be as significant as you think they do. They also don't have to resort in those sorts of injuries. So if you haven't had those injuries before, it's definitely important to look at these sorts of measures to prevent against them in the long term. I find a lot of traits are quite similar for people who suffered with those injuries. Usually it's people who plant in front of their hips, the people who sink down and have quite a low knee angle. You'll find that people who overstride and sink through the hips. So straight away trying to get more aligned and straighter and taller will straight away reduce those pressures in the lower body, reduce that impact, reduce that loading in that area. So you're not going to get those stress fractures, you're not going to get those pains in the nerves, in the metatarsals, in between the metatarsals as well. So in terms of the metatarsals, guys, you've probably heard about it with lots of sportsmen before. As an Englishman, the most famous one was David Beckham, who had them, but a lot of sportsmen and runners over the years have suffered with them. In order to try and prevent them, you need to be smart as a runner, and you need to ensure that you're not overloading when you go, particularly if you're training hard, you're training a lot of miles each week. or you're doing long distance runs, or you're training for marathons. So it's really important to think about that. So this is Will from the Running Injury Free Revolution. Please check out more videos at www.rifrev.com.